Ele é o primeiro ativista a pedir ao governo a abertura dos arquivos ufológicos, do disclosure. E em recente afirmação, ele diz que os extraterrestres perderam a paciência com a civilização humana e que a abertura finalmente vai acontecer. Os drones que estão voando sobre os céus não são somente terrestres. Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, boa madrugada, aonde você estiver. Eu sou o LUIZ. Sejam bem-vindos ao canal da Revista UFO no YouTube. Bassett é um pesquisador norte-americano, diretor executivo do Paradigm Research Group, criado em 1996 para pedir a abertura, o disclosure, de todo o governo norte-americano. Ele foi o primeiro, o pioneiro, a ter feito uma audiência no Congresso norte-americano, no clube de imprensa, onde ele levou ufólogos, militares e civis, testemunhas de fenômenos ufológicos. O GVR, inclusive, esteve presente nessa reunião. E Bassett, dessa vez, faz uma afirmação ainda mais contundente. Mas antes, é claro, não se esqueça de se inscrever no canal. Vamos chegar aos 100 mil inscritos até o meio do ano que vem, hein? Até o meio de 2025. Marque também o sininho, para sempre que tiver um vídeo novo, você ser avisado e não perder nada. Deixe também o seu like, várias vezes, em todos os vídeos do canal. E é claro, o seu comentário é muito importante. Queremos saber o que você pensa. Será que os temas que estamos trazendo para vocês são relevantes? Diz aí. Ele afirmou em uma entrevista que os extraterrestres perderam a paciência com a abertura e estão querendo agora se mostrar para acabar com tudo isso e trazer a verdade para a raça humana. Será? Vamos ouvir essa entrevista do Bassett falando sobre isso aí.
The United States government knew about the ET presence no later than July of 1947 in Roswell. Made the decision at that time to keep that from the American people. Fine. Almost exactly 5 years later to the week, there was a significant flyover of Washington, D.C. The U.S. government had a problem. General John Sanford made the response for the government, which was equivocative, but not unreasonable. But also there came a response from Donald Keogh, who flat out said, these are extraterrestrials. It's not human. Again, the government made the decision to keep this from the American people. 10 years later, 1962, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we almost had a nuclear war. Only 4 years after that, these craft started appearing over our nuclear facilities and shutting our nuclear weapons down. How many times this happened in the 60s, we don't know. Because the Air Force probably at some point was able to keep a much tighter rein on the outcome. But witnesses for a number of these shutdowns came forward. They have been trying to testify before Congress for 30 years, which is when they initially made the decision to start coming forward, led by Captain Robert Salas. The government has not allowed them to testify, and in fact, it has virtually ghosted them. It was about the only thing they could do. All right. And so that was in the 60s. Again, the government kept this from the American people. Decades went on. And then we start to approach what I think is the end game, the end of the truth embargo. And we start moving into that 7-year period starting in 2017. But it's not been easy. It's been slow. There's been pushback. There's been some wins and losses, but we are moving toward disclosure without question. However, we are also moving toward nuclear war. Just that one thing alone is enough to be justification for more action from them. And so as we stall on the disclosure process, we suddenly have what the history will call the era of the drone swarms, the drone swarm flap. Let me take you back to May 17th of 2022. At that time, we had a hearing in front of the subcommittee of the Intelligence Committee in the Senate. Scott Bray and Ronald Moultrie. It was the first hearing, by the way, since the last one in 1968. So we're talking 54 years. So that's progress. And they came in, they were working for the UAP task force, and they testified. It wasn't, grandiose. It was kind of basic. A lot of people were not satisfied. But at that hearing, you may recall, a video was presented, a video that had emerged not too long before the hearing was held. And it involved a drone swarm around one of our ships at night, not over New Jersey, not over the UK, not over some part of the United States, but over one of our ships at night. And they did not shoot them down. In fact, they didn't do anything. And the only reason we got that film is because, well, a lot of sailors have cameras. They're allowed to take cameras with them. And somebody filmed it and it got in our hands. And Bray, Scott Bray, tried to explain it, but it was really painful. So the drone swarm era goes all the way back to 2022. And it has been escalating ever since. And so here is my conclusion. The extraterrestrials have lost their patience. And the risk to us as a civilization has only increased. And so they decided we're going to end this nonsense. And so they are doing incursions, using their devices, whatever they are, not just in one place, not in two places, not on one continent, multiple continents. And the US government knows it. And what do you do? Here's what they do, right? You can't shoot them down. They know they're extraterrestrial, I can assure you, right? Trying to shoot down extraterrestrial craft of any kind or orbs of any kind, you end up killing human beings, and it's hopeless. You don't want to send up piloted craft because they could crash. So you send up your own drones to somehow monitor them as best you can. And so what you're seeing is a mix of military drones and non-human craft entities of whatever type they want, engaging in some, I guess, process, probably mostly surveillance by us of them. And that is all the government can do. And so what the ETs and their genius have done is put the United States government, the UK government, in an impossible position finally. In other words, we can't tell you what they really are, though we know, but we can't stop them from doing this. And they continue to do it, and they will continue to do it. And the pressure on the government, the embarrassment for the government will become excruciating. And those people within the United States government that somehow have decided that we will never know this truth as long as they walk this face of the earth will finally just capitulate to the growing number of people within our government think it's time we know the truth about this. And so this is an ET-driven intervention to get us into the post-disclosure world before we blow ourselves to hell. The current engagement of it is to send up our own drones to try to, I don't know, follow them, do what we can. The whole thing is a giant fiasco, and it only leads one way, right? There's so many of these things can go on, and so many members of the Senate or the House or the DOD that have to come out with ridiculously idiotic answers and make complete fools of themselves before they realize if we would end this truth embargo, we could stop making fools of ourselves and our government and move on with civilization. That's the narrative that I'm using for this. I'm very comfortable with it, but I certainly invite those that disagree. Thank you.
Que declaração forte. Para Stephen Bassett, então, os extraterrestres estão preocupados com o nosso risco como civilização. E eles perderam a paciência de que, na boa vontade, os governantes falassem a verdade. E o que você acha da fala de Steve ao dizer que o que tem sobre os Estados Unidos são, além de drones artificiais, terrestres, há também aparelhos extraterrestres dos alienígenas. Eu disse, antes do Stephen Bassett, que esses avistamentos desses drones, UFOs, drufos, o que quer que seja, iriam impactar diretamente na ufologia, na abertura ufológica do disclosure. Muita gente riu de mim. Alguns disseram que não se deveria investigar nem prestar atenção em tudo que está ocorrendo nos Estados Unidos. Pois bem, Steve concorda com o que eu falei, mesmo sem saber. As consequências para essa crise, para essa invasão de drones que até agora não sabemos o que é, nem de onde vem, nem de quem são, vai certamente fazer com que os congressistas norte-americanos pressionem cada vez mais o governo dos Estados Unidos e os militares para que façam uma abertura de todos os arquivos. E quando eu digo todos os arquivos, eles não estão querendo saber se é extraterrestre ou não. Eles querem saber o que está nos céus dos Estados Unidos. Como que algo que passa desapercebido pela segurança aérea não é um risco à segurança nacional. E será mesmo que os extraterrestres perderam a paciência conosco, como civilização, e querem dar um jeito para que entremos nos trilhos? Quero saber a sua opinião. O que você acha? Deixe aqui nos comentários do vídeo. Um abraço e até a próxima.